Okay, operator, let's move on to the fourth speaker in this rapid fire segment, and that will be Tamer from Egypt. Tamer, the floor is yours.
Okay, hello everyone. Tamer speaking from Cairo, Egypt. Of course, very happy to be part of this interesting discussion. I would like to thank Dr. Atik and the whole ID4Africa team for making sure this live cast is happening now. So today, I'm gonna talk about a real live implementation of our vaccination management system, Vaxima, that we managed to do hand in hand with the Egyptian government. So as some of you might know, Egypt was one of the first African countries to get access to their vaccination doses. And during that time, they were focused on issuing, hold on for a second, please. Okay, I just need to minimize. During that time, like everyone else, their main focus was to think about the next step of having a secure vaccination certificate. And this is when exactly the first engagement with GET took place as an expert in credential and identity management solutions. So when we started talking with them, we both agreed that before we need to reach to this stage of having a vaccination certificate, or what we call the health passport, we first need to have a complete platform to manage the vaccination process. So when we started to plan for this project, we had to think about many things. How are we going to build a robust and secure system to register a population of 100 million people? How we are going to support the government to take some important decisions related to budgeting and forecasting for the vaccines? What about stock management? How we are going to distribute the vaccinations across the different health centers? And also the vaccination requests. What we did is that we are relying on the WHO recommendations to enable the system automatically manage all the vaccination requests based on preset parameters like age, chronic diseases, and other things. Also, the appointment to take the vaccine, how we can make sure that everyone is having a fair chance to get his or her vaccine, and try to eliminate fraud as much as possible. So we had to bring all of those components together to make sure of a successful implementation of this project in Egypt. But the question, how did we make sure the implementation is successful? First, the architecture. We have the system and the servers located in a central location, and this location is connected to the different health centers across the country. So we started with 200 health centers, and now we are speaking about 800 plus, and it's forecasted that we reach 2,000 centers. Also, being a leader in providing identity management solutions, so obviously security and data privacy were on top of our priorities while building the system. But at the same time, we had to make sure that the system is built on an open platform and it can be easily integrated to other systems. And this is what we exactly did in Egypt. We are integrating with some of the government system, for example, the EDA, which is the Egyptian Drug Authority. And this system gives us a very useful information about the different types of vaccines and the expected side effects. Also, a very important aspect of the system is how people now are interacting with the system. So first, we need them to access the system to register themselves. And this can happen anytime, anywhere. This is a web-based application. They can either use their laptops, cell phones, tablets. And we also thought about people who do not have access to those devices or do not have the knowledge to deal with those devices. So we established other means for registration. So we have call centers, and we even enabled people to register on behalf of others. Finally, in a later stage, the system will issue a secure certification that is going to be used by the verifier in different use cases that we are going to discuss later on. Now, one of the most important benefits of building such system in Egypt is that as we speak, Egypt is building a national registry for all vaccinated people. And this is giving the government very useful information, reports, and statistics about population data, about statistics, information about based on gender, age group, and chronic diseases, and also very important information about vaccines themselves. Also, having an established national registry, it allows the government to decide on issuing the certificate whenever they feel confident to do so. And speaking about the certificates, all what we did so far was to pave the way to reach to this part, the most important part of the system, which is the vaccination certificate. And now the ongoing discussions with the government that we need to make sure of two main principles. First, it has to be accessible to everyone. Second, it has to be very secure. So you will notice we have it in different forms, and all the security elements have been taken into consideration. And also for the verification, now we are talking about two main categories. The first one is the color-coded verification for less sensitive use cases, like concerts, stadiums, crowded places. And we also have another scenario for the more sensitive cases where we need to have the verifier with the public key to access the information digitally signed on the barcode. So at this stage, we addressed almost all of the challenges that we had in mind while building the system. However, there's still one challenge, and I believe this is the challenge of everyone, which is interoperability. And of course, we are aware of the initiatives and the standards being discussed now, and we discussed that with the government. But we all know this will require some time.
Excuse me, Tamer, you have 1 minute left. You have 1 minute.
Okay. We know that it will require some time to have an internationally accepted standard. And that's why what the government is thinking about is to address this issue through government-to-government agreements with other countries. So those countries will be able to accept the form of certificate we did here in Egypt. And of course, it's important to note that the system will enable them to integrate with whatever standard when the time is right. So to wrap up, do we recommend replicating what Egypt did in other African countries? Absolutely, yes. If we look at Egypt now, they are actually in a very good position. They have a robust system. They are vaccinating their citizens in a rapid rate, and they are building a solid national registry. And most importantly, they can integrate with whatever accepted standard in the future. That's it for me today, and I'll be happy to accept any questions you might have. Thank you.
Yes, Tamer, thank you. Thank you so much. Actually, just to give some color to what the strategy here, you're basically talking about a centralized strategy nationwide. You're talking about a platform owned by the government, operated by the government, and developing essentially a ground truth, which is a registry of everybody who has been vaccinated. And then from then on, the government could produce attestation certificates. Some of them are going to be used for low risk activities. And then in that case, if I understood correctly, you may not need to verify the PKI transaction. And then others are much more sensitive, in which case you do need to check the authenticity of that certificate.
Yes, it's a very good
is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so talk about the identifier element of this. To what extent Egypt has a total coverage of its population with the identifier, and to what extent do you use it in the certificates for COVID?
Yes, for Egyptians, we rely on the national ID, and if this is not available, we rely on the passport as well. And for non-Egyptians, it's a mix between the national ID and passport. So this is a vital point during the registration. If both of them are not available, we cannot proceed with registering citizens.
Right. Okay. So you do need an identifier integrated in that. Okay. And there is a question from the audience from Paul Byrne, which basically said, you talked about a bilateral agreement, the way you're seeing this for certs issued in Egypt. Is this a globally scalable solution, or is it needed? If you have an open API structure and the certificate becomes portable, you take a certificate from Egypt and then you can use it in any other application. Why do you need a government-to-government bilateral agreement?
Okay, let me put it that way and give you an example. So if I have my certificates and I'm traveling to another country that has an agreement with Egypt on a governmental level, okay, what they need to do at that point is just they need to, and this is what is being discussed now. This is the idea they're thinking about. That all what they need is to access the information on the QR code. At this stage, they don't need the PKI part. All what they need is to access the QR code that will redirect them to a securely hosted portal on the Ministry of Health. And online, yes. And this portal will give all the details about the vaccination history of this particular person. Of course, there has to be some education on how to make sure that this portal is not fraud and certificates are there and everything. But again, the government agrees, and then it's only a web portal that can be accessed anywhere.
Okay, so that raises issues of privacy and that raises issues of security. Basically, if it's online accessible, what about some hackers from some nefarious organization that can download?
Okay, now in Egypt, no one, only Egyptians or people living in Egypt can access the system through secure connections. Same will apply for other third party and other countries. So no one can access the system unless the government is allowing them to do that.
Okay, and you don't think hackers would love to get the list of every Egyptian?
Let me put it that way, because we have been through severe tests before, implementing this system, and the government was very cautious about this thing. They even hired some third-party companies to test and do the penetration test for the system. So all the security measures that you can think about are already implemented, from firewalls, DOS, encryptions, everything. So we are not really worried about it.
Fair enough. John Dubois asks, how do you ensure that the QR code that's being scanned by a third party is not addressing to a fake portal?
This is exactly, this is a very good question. And this is why it's very important that, when you look into a secure portal, you can check the certificates, and there are some special modifications on the portal itself that can make sure that it's not fake. And this is an important step that has to be done with the other countries. It's like that you are educating officers at the border with your secure elements of the passports. So there is a learning curve that has to be done, but it's very easy to identify that this is not fake.
Okay, so that's on your radar screen. You've got measures to ensure that that's not the case. One more question from Nikula Mawanza. And basically, it's an important question. It has to do with the fact that your vaccination management system is a backend system. Is there a wrap back, meaning notification by SMS to the individual who is concerned when their record has been accessed or the record has been hacked or disclosed? Do you tell people somebody asked about your record? Do you give permission to allow them? Talk about the potential notification to the people concerned with the records.
Okay, so in terms of notification in Egypt, and I believe most of Africa, feature phones are still dominant. So it was very important for us to rely on simple communication ways. So we are dealing here with the national telecom operators. Every step related to the system, the citizen is notified when the appointment is there, the type of vaccine, if there are delays in his appointment. So SMSs is a major or is a main mean of communication. Also, very importantly, we are integrating with a chatbot service to allow people to interact with the system before vaccination and even after vaccination. And this brings up a very interesting point. The more data the system is gathering, it can rely on business intelligence to decide and to make good decisions for both the citizens and the government. For instance, if I'll give you an example, my mother-in-law 3 days ago should have been vaccinated, and she is a rheumatoid patient, and she was supposed to take some sort a specific type of vaccine. I can't remember which one, but it seems that based on the data received by the system, there was some unusual symptoms for rheumatoid patients taking that vaccine. So the system notified her, okay, we need to delay this appointment, and you need to change the vaccination type. So the more information you gather, the more decisions you can
give. Yeah. Okay, Tamer, we're running out of time. Thank you so much for this contribution. There are some other questions regarding the implementation status and other types of questions specific to you. Please engage with the audience, and thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.